Anyone who starts out on an adventure knows that there will be obstacles along the way that may seem insurmountable. Climbers train for months, knowing that gentle slopes will give way to large overhangs. Every climb has one overhang that can seem impossible when confronted. We have now reached just such a critical juncture in our quest to reverse the cycle of unhappiness. The challenge before us at this point is to see if we can be with our unwanted emotions without making them worse. Befriending emotions that we've viewed as the enemy for so long may run counter to all of our self-preservation instincts, but when it comes right down to it, what else is there to do? The alternative so far has been to struggle and suffer. Perhaps it's time to explore another path. We're not claiming that cultivating mindfulness in the face of a tendency towards sadness, low mood and depressive rumination is easy, but it is doable. What is more, it draws on what is deepest and best in us. The key here is to uncouple our experience of unpleasant feelings from the knee-jerk reaction of aversion that habitually follows it. Or, if we are already caught up in aversion, to free ourselves from its grip. But how can we do this? We've already seen that whenever something unpleasant arises, the systems in the brain that warn us about potential threats are activated. And we know how we'd normally react, trying to distract ourselves, for example, perhaps turning on the television. But we also know that the worries may keep intruding on our consciousness. Sooner or later, with the television on or off, the disturbing thoughts and feelings come flooding back. Here is that critical moment. If, paradoxically, we can turn and face whatever it is that we are finding scary, difficult, or depressing, rather than perpetually distracting ourselves to no avail, we are actually doing something very wise. That's because we're still doing what the brain wants us to do, giving high priority attention to the matter at hand. It's just that we are no longer giving it attention in the old, doing way. We are approaching the moment, whatever it is, however it is, not by reacting, but rather by responding. And we do this by bringing an open, spacious, and affectionate attention to the feeling in the moment as it expresses itself in the body. Now we are in relationship to the alarm in a new way, one that provides us with a viable alternative to endlessly thinking about it. And focusing on how we experience it in the body is aided enormously by connecting our awareness of the breath in that very moment with whatever the unpleasant experience is, what we were calling a gesture of breathing with. This breathing with whatever arises in and of itself tends to steady the mind. As we learned, it involves expanding the awareness of our breath sensations to include awareness of other relevant sensations we're experiencing in the body. Practicing in this way includes intentionally breathing into any area of painful or uncomfortable sensations, exploring their edges and any changes in intensity, and allowing our awareness to simply hold it all. In such a moment, we have an opportunity to recognize any signs of aversion manifested in the body as contraction. Tying awareness of the breath to awareness of other sensations in the body makes the breath a vehicle for the movement of awareness just as it was in the body scan. But since this awareness can also hold thoughts and feelings, if those should arise, the field of awareness can readily recognize and accommodate them as well, without having to do anything at all. The awareness itself does all the work. We can start to learn this new way to relate to unpleasant sensations and feelings through the mindful yoga stretches described in the guided practice session. You may like to pause this program for a few minutes and do some of these stretches following along with track 3 of the guided practice session. As best you can, approach these stretches in the spirit that we now describe. we almost inevitably encounter at least some degree of bodily discomfort in key places when we practice stretching through mindful yoga. This is what makes this practice such an effective vehicle for learning how to approach difficult and unwanted moments and experiences with greater acceptance, curiosity, gentleness, and kindness. What is more, the new skills we develop in working with even a mild degree of physical discomfort can be directly applied later to situations of emotional discomfort, however intense they may be. Let's imagine we have our hands above our heads, we're stretching upward with our whole bodies, and it is beginning to feel uncomfortable in our shoulders and upper arms. One way to react, we might call this the avoidance option, is to back off as soon as we feel any discomfort, perhaps immediately lowering our arms. Another possibility, we could call it the unkind option, is to grit our teeth, tell ourselves we just have to put up with the increasing pain and discomfort and not make a fuss, as if this were the aim of the practice. We would then put even more effort into pushing ourselves to stretch further. But there is also a third option, one that strikes a balance between withdrawing at the first sign of discomfort and forcing ourselves to meet some self-designated standard of endurance. This mindful option calls for approaching the situation in a spirit of gentle nurturing, using the stretch to extend our ways of relating to discomfort. We direct our attention right into the area of discomfort as best we can, using the breath as a vehicle to bring awareness right into this region, as we did in the body scan. With a gentle curiosity, we then explore what we find here. Physical sensations and feelings, coming and going, changing and fluxing. We sense them directly, perhaps focusing on any changes in intensity over time. The idea is not to hold a posture until it is painful. It is rather to experience the limit of the movement in any particular stretch or posture, and then to linger here, without forcing or pushing through strong sensations. All the while, we keep our attention on the sensations and feelings themselves as best we can. We focus on the physical qualities of the sensations, on any sense of tightness, holding, burning, trembling, or shaking. Breathing with the sensations as best we can. We allow our thoughts about what these feelings mean to simply come and go in awareness. And we can play with the intensity of sensation by actually varying the stretch itself, experimenting with working the edge of our discomfort and our acceptance, exploring for ourselves just how the body responds directly to every tiny change we introduce. This approach gives us some sense of being able to modulate the intensity of unpleasant sensations. This is also a way we can be gentle and nurturing toward ourselves while still learning how to relate to whatever arises in a new way. We don't try to force things beyond our limit of the moment. Mindful stretching provides a very useful training ground for exploring new, counterintuitive ways to respond to discomfort. It also offers in itself an invaluable way to shift modes of mind when we feel ourselves sliding into unhappiness. We can put on track 3 of the guided practice session, for instance, and perhaps recover our clarity of mind just by attending to the body's movements and sensations. When our mood has deteriorated, when we're finding it difficult to concentrate, it's helpful to be able to ground ourselves in awareness of the tangible sensations that arise as we stretch and twist and work with our bodies. This gentle, yet always challenging physical activity can also have a direct enlivening and arousing effect that may cut through the lethargy that can rear its head as unhappiness deepens. In fact, it is very difficult to remain sad or anxious while doing yoga in a mindful way. We might run into a certain degree of discomfort in the sitting meditation as well, simply by being still for an extended period of time, even more so when sitting cross-legged on the floor. One or both knees, the back, neck or shoulders might start to ache, and the ache can intensify with time, sometimes quite dramatically. Recall that the sitting meditation invites us first to let our attention settle on the breath sensations themselves, and then gradually expanding the field of awareness once it is relatively stable to include a sense of the body as a whole or any particular regions that might be giving rise to intense sensations. So here is another effective opportunity, just as in the mindful yoga, to develop our ability to work the edge, befriending our experience in the body by turning toward and opening to whatever is present, even if our initial reaction is strong aversion. When our attention is repeatedly drawn to such uncomfortable sensations, we can include those areas of greatest intensity within the field of awareness and experience them moment by moment just as they are, even if it is just for a few moments at first. Here we are again, working the edge, gently and lovingly zeroing in on our boundaries and limits by moving into and embracing the sensations themselves, until we sense that we have reached our limit for the moment. Then we intentionally and caringly back off and shift our attention from the region of greatest intensity, ready to return when we have gathered and regrouped our resources. We might do this in a number of ways. One possibility is to shift attention within the general region of intensity, so that rather than focusing on the region of maximum intensity, we focus on an area of lesser intensity. Another possibility is to breathe with the discomfort, holding awareness of the intense sensations together with awareness of the breath in the background. Or, if the intensity is becoming overwhelming, we can shift the focus of attention away from that region entirely and focus attention exclusively on the breath. And remembering that we always have the option of moving the body intentionally, of shifting our posture during the sitting meditation practice if the intensity becomes too great. This is an act of kindness and intelligence in itself, and it's not a measure of failure. And we can be aware of shifting our posture too, so that there is a continuity of awareness, regardless of how we are responding to the intensity of sensation. The point here is that the practice itself allows us to discover different ways to stay in relationship to our inner experience, even when it is unpleasant and difficult. It reminds us that we don't have to throw ourselves in all at once. It's more like dipping just the big toe in the water to test the temperature. What we are learning here is the power of awareness to contain whatever arises without our needing to push it away or try to escape from it. This learning can be applied to any other intense experience of physical or emotional pain. We discover that we can take care of ourselves by actually embracing and befriending whatever we are feeling in awareness. An awareness suffused with qualities of kindness and a gentle openness and interest in what is arising within us, whatever it is. Unpleasant emotions are invariably accompanied by sensations and feelings in the body. If we gently focus our attention right into these areas of intense sensation and discomfort, we bring about both immediate and longer-term effects. We immediately short-circuit any unhelpful avoidance tendencies of the mind. We also immediately disrupt the automatic links among body sensations, feelings and thoughts that perpetuate vicious cycles and downward mood spirals. In the longer run, we develop more skillful ways of being in relationship to uncomfortable experiences. Rather than seeing them as bad and threatening things, a view that triggers avoidance and gets us stuck in suffering, we begin to see unpleasant experiences for what they are: passing mental events, bundles of bodily sensations, feelings and thoughts. As best we can, we greet them with a sense of interest and curiosity rather than with a sense of unease, hatred and dread. We welcome them in as they are already here anyway. In the MBCT program, we have specifically designed a practice for investigating the texture of emotionally challenging situations. The practice helps us explore and cultivate more skillful responses in those critical moments. We start by deliberately inviting a difficult scenario or circumstance to come to mind. We then work with it in the body, bringing awareness to it, breathing into it, and discovering a wider space within which it might exist. We suggest that you settle by focusing on the breath and body for a few minutes before starting to follow the instructions. Sitting for a few minutes, focusing on the sensations of breathing, then widening the awareness to take in the body as a whole. Now, when you are ready, see if you can bring to mind a difficulty that's going on in your life at the moment, something you don't mind staying with for a short while. It doesn't have to be very important or critical. It should be something that you are aware of as something unpleasant, something unresolved. Perhaps a misunderstanding or an argument, a situation where you feel somewhat angry, regretful, perhaps guilty over something that has happened. If nothing comes to mind, you could choose something from the past that once caused unpleasantness. Now, once you're focusing on some troubling thought or situation, some worry or intense feeling, allowing yourself to take some time to tune in now to any physical sensations in the body that the difficulty evokes. Deliberately directing your focus of attention to the region of the body where the sensations are strongest. A sense of making a gesture of an embrace, a welcoming. This might include breathing into that part of the body on the in-breath and breathing out from that region on the out-breath. Exploring the sensations, watching their intensity shift up and down from moment to moment. Once your attention has settled on the body sensations and they are vividly present in the field of awareness, see about deepening the attitude of acceptance and openness to whatever sensations you are experiencing. Saying to yourself from time to time, perhaps, it's okay. Whatever it is, it's already here. Let me be open to it. Let me feel this. It's okay. Then staying with the awareness of these bodily sensations and your relationship to them, breathing with them, accepting them, letting them be. If you like, also experimenting with holding in awareness both the sensations in the body and the feeling of the breath moving in and out as you breathe with the sensations, moment by moment. And when you notice that the bodily sensations are no longer pulling your attention to the same degree, simply return 100% to the breath and continue with that as the primary object of attention. And if no powerful body sensations arise, feeling free to try this exercise with any bodily sensations you notice, even if they have no particular emotional charge. The point of the practice we've just described is to provide, within the laboratory of a therapeutic program and the meditation practice itself, opportunity after opportunity to explore and develop more effective ways of responding to unpleasant feelings and emotions. These skills, developed in this admittedly highly contained formal learning situation, can then be used where they are really needed in our everyday lives. Each of us needs to choose a pace at which we can work the edge of painful and difficult feelings, especially if they involve painful memories. Turning toward such feelings and being willing to experience them is a very brave thing to do, but it can also seem like a crazy thing to do, since it runs counter to all our common sense instincts for self-preservation. In the final analysis, however, if we want freedom from the habitual reactivity of the mind, we may have no choice. In the end, the path of honesty and genuine openness may be the only path that offers healing and resolution. The alternatives may just not go deep enough, or may suffer from a lack of authenticity. This attitude of radical acceptance is expressed simply and profoundly in the poem called The Guest House by Rumi, a 13th century Sufi poet. I'll read it for you now. This being human is a guest house. Every morning a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honourably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. The beauty of bringing a wider moment-by-moment awareness to an old wound, a current pain or a difficulty, is that it opens up new possibilities for our minds and our bodies. In mindfulness practice, a spirit of gentleness and tenderness is combined with a spirit of adventure and discovery. Let's see what is in this moment, and this moment, and this moment. This means that we've got only the problems of this moment, and they may not even be a problem in this very moment, rather than piling on all the problems of next week, next year, and the rest of our lives, which we so reflexively fall into doing. If our thoughts like, "This is just how I am," persuade us that our lives will always be like this, then what started with pain or tension or sadness is going to give rise to even greater suffering. But if we're just here for this moment, and in this moment, with these thoughts and feelings and body sensations, and now in the very next moment the mind's patterns are changed in some way, and now changed again in the very next moment, events have a chance to unfold in an entirely different way. And yet it is always now, and therefore always workable in the very same way as the guest house is suggesting.